Welcome to a new series called Devin's Game Day. Oh God! But this video won't be a game day just yet. Game day will be happening later today. So what we doing first? Oh, wait, we're doing that. Jumanji, welcome to the jungle. Okay.
To learn the basics of swordcraft, you will need a weapon. A simple duplication spell for metallic objects should suffice. What are you doing, boy?
I do magic tricks for a hobby, but I'm no good at duplication illusions. So I'm going to video what you do and try and copy it.
I'll be most impressed if you succeed.
Wow!
Now, you have an army to fight, a demon to slay, a country to save. So let us begin. What's he doing?
I know a lot of people hate remakes, and trust me, I'm with you, but I kinda gotta give this new Jumanji movie a junior price. Let me explain. We all love that old Jumanji movie, even though I don't know how many of us have actually rewatched it, because it's one of those childhood movies that you remember being flawless, but just like the outfits you wore growing up, you reflect back on them as you see them in pictures once you're an adult, and you go, what the? Fast forward to the present, and everything's got to be rebooted to be bigger, louder, and obviously star Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So right off the bat, we begin this one in 1996, where a father comes across the board game on the beach, which is exactly where we left it in the last one. He takes it home for his kid, and the kid goes... So Jumanji then decides to pull a Bumblebee and transforms itself into a Sega Genesis for the kid to play, and then get sucked into. So this game is practically human trafficking. We fast forward to the present, and we see the naked brother who's been getting more roles, and well, he's playing the same role. He continues to get casted. Homie's such a germaphobe that he's putting on Purell on his neck to fight off diseases. He dresses up like Georgie from It, and he's doing homework for people who he thinks are his friends, but really, they're just using him. Cyborg over here is that athlete friend who's using him, and eventually they both get caught cheating, and they both get sent to detention, alongside with the person who old people think is the example of a millennial, and the nerdy chick who didn't want to play with balls. Before they turn into the Breakfast Club, they end up finding the game system. They roll in one of those sex ed TVs and boot up that bad boy. All of a sudden, that THX sound that you hated growing up before in movies starts filling up the room, and these dudes get sucked into the game. On the other side, you get the cast that's actually going to get the poster credits, and the ones who pull, in my opinion, one of the best versions of Freaky Friday since 17 again. They realize that they've all swapped roles and are in a video game, cutscenes and all, where they need to retrieve this Emerald Dragon Ball and return it to the top of this Wakandan mountain. But then one of them dies after a game of Hungry Hungry Hippo. It's because of that they learn that the marks on their hands are actually lives, and that in order to get out of this world, they need to maintain them, or else they're just going to disintegrate and never make it back to real life. So in this world, Black lives do matter. They survive long enough to meet up with Nick Jonas, who, surprise, is the kid from the beginning who's been stuck in this game for 2 decades. He's even living in that shack that Robin Williams was living in the first one, and he hasn't risked trying to move on in this game since he only has 1 life left. So the moment that he meets these people, he ends up losing that 1 life. Bethany, however, uses a cheat code and gives him one of her lives and tells him to call her by his name. At this part in the movie, all of the characters have learned to rethink their attributes. Spencer finally finds confidence in himself to be a leader. Fridge finally learns how to work with other people. Bethany won't ever complain again after having to live in Jack Black's body, and Martha learns to interact better with others as she works her DDR moves in order to help get to the next level. They end up facing Mad Max bikers, Indiana Jones snakes, PlayStation 2 graphics, and eventually defeat evil Bobby Cannavale as they get the stone to the top of Pride Rock. But then they forget to yell out Uno. Once they yell Jumanji, they officially win the game, and Nigel Thornberry over here shows up to congratulate them and send them back to the real world. And at this point, Spencer starts doubting that he'll be as confident since he won't be able to have the muscles, he won't be able to have that smolder, and they just won't respect him the same in the real world. But Martha looks at him straight in the face and reminds him that they need to go back because they have finals. They jump back to reality and they haven't even finished their detention work, but they rush to go see Alex in the real world, and well, he looks nothing like what we thought Nick Jonas would look like older. He's older, he has a family, so they decide to move on. They become friends in real life, they get jiggy in real life, and smash the game system so they never have to deal with it again. Except this movie made bank, so we're definitely gonna see it again. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you thought about this movie. Did you like it better than the first one? Did you think that this is an actual good video game movie, even though it's not really based off of a video game? But
Okay. Are there any more videos I can work on? Fuck care. Okay, we're gonna watch Blade Runner.
You need to prove you're looking for work.
I've been looking, trust me. Sometimes you have to run out of chances.
I am done, Dell.
the first Blade Runner was revolutionary, culture shocking, and an inspiration to thousands as it proved to us even Hollywood accepts rough drafts. Now, I don't know if you saw the director's cut, the ultimate cut, or the other 2,049 final cuts that there are of the first film, but to catch you up to figure out what happens in the sequel, pretty much all you have to know is that there is a dystopian LA in where they've engineered these things called replicants. And these things just aren't robots like Westworld. They actually look like real humans inside and out. Most of them were sent with the Transformers to another planet to do all of this minuscule work, but some of them come back to Earth with a vengeance. And so Ford, a Blade Runner, who is a person who's hired to go out and kill them, is hired to go out and kill them. Throughout the entirety of the first movie, we follow him try to do that, and then by the end of it, he instead falls in love with one and runs away. Now it's the sequel, the year is 2049, and Ryan Gosling is a Blade Runner, but also a replicant, which I believe he was in Drive 2. He's going out like a house slave, killing his own kind, when he comes across some info that reveals that Ford and his robo-chick had a baby. This is such a big deal for the bioengineer played by Jared Leto that he gives an over-the-top performance. His big goal is to create replicants that can get jiggy with it and have their own kids, thus he can call himself a god since he'd be creating his own species. It's Westworld. In the meantime, Agent K is chilling at home with his hot version of Siri as he questions whether he's human or not. Joy, which is an AI system that's meant to pretend to be your girlfriend, has whispered sweet nothings to him, making him believe that the memories he keeps having of himself as a child, which can't be real since he's a replicant, are actually real. He goes on this big journey finding transcripts that seems to point as him being the child. He finds this wooden horsey thing he saw in his visions, and right when he comes across his papa, Ford gets taken away, his AI girlfriend gets destroyed, and then this random militia group tells him that he ain't special, and every replicant is given memories by a designer. A designer who ends up being the actual daughter of Rick Deckard. When he realizes all of this, he has to make a decision. Live as a programmed robot, or make a choice and give himself purpose. The script says purpose. He goes to save Deckard from Frieza, stages Deckard's death, delivers him to meet his daughter, and dies in the snow the same way Roy Batty died in the rain after saving Deckard. Now, my twin brother made a deeper video talking about all the philosophical stuff in this movie, but for us simpletons, it makes us ask, at what point will robots be so advanced that we can't tell the difference? With VR and all this other stuff that's coming up, at what point will we talk to our computers more than actual people? And most of all, at what point can you buy a copy of Joy? Thanks for watching this video. Let me know what other movies, TV shows, heck, even some music albums that you want me to explain in a minute.
Okay, we're looking for something else, but it's gonna be a little hard. A little hard to find something else. On the Maze Runner series.
So the YA craze has pretty much just died down by now, especially when you see how bad the Divergent movies have gotten, that they're considering releasing the fourth as a TV movie. Oh, damn. But what sucks is that I never really minded the Maze Runner series. I think Dylan O'Brien is pretty dreamy. I think the first had great sound design. And I like that the director didn't decide to split the last movie into 45 parts like every other franchise is doing. However, I do think that while the finale has great effects, in my opinion, it's just a solid rental. Let me explain. So this movie was supposed to come out like 2 years ago, but then they almost killed the main character doing a stunt on set. So of course, we start off the movie by playing that sequence where he almost died with a concussion. According to Dylan, they actually used a clip from his injury in the movie, so they pretty much are taking a page from Ben-Hur. Pretty much this scene is like the opening to Toy Story 3 on the train. They're trying to save Dong from Kimmy Schmidt since he was kidnapped in the last movie, but they end up grabbing the wrong caboose. Let me just add that these soldiers right here are worse than stormtroopers when it comes to shooting. Like, they had like 5 headshots right at the beginning and the movie would have been over. Anyways, Mito gets taken back to the set of the first movie since they're running these mental tests on him within this facility that's actually in a thriving city surrounded by walls to keep out uncivilized people. Ain't this divergent? Tammy 1 and that pasty traitor are still trying to come up with a serum to help fix the virus that plagued the world due to solar flares. They're also trying to fix the problem they created when they experimented on kids, which they locked up in a death maze. Those surviving kids are now hanging out with Barry Pepper, Gus, a deformed Moonlight, and dun dun dun, the racist cop from Detroit. Now, Gally was in the first movie, which is crazy since the dude got pierced like a mofo, and now he's alive, has been born again, found Jesus, is a good guy, and has a plan to sneak them into the city by doing the one thing no man ever wants to do: talk to an ex. Thomas meets up with the pasty, line-thieving adulteress at heart and kind of convinces her to sneak them into the facility, which is kind of pointless considering that Newt and Gally were already inside. They Schindler List the kids out of their cells, rescue Mino, and then jump out of the window to escape from the 30th floor. Like, I could see the pennies from the pool. Meanwhile, Phantom of the Opera is starting a revolution, White Walkers that wall, and turns the city into Ferguson. Alita is reenacting Speed on that bus with all the kids, and then gets picked up by a crane and tossed outside the city. And Toothpaste over here figures out that Thomas has the blood of Jesus and can cleanse everyone not only from the virus, but of their sins. Dylan and Ferb are trying to escape amongst all the wreckage when Newt turns into a zombie and tries to eat Thomas. Of course, friends don't stab each other in the back, so Dylan stabs him in the front, and he dies. Should have just, blood brothered him since you have the cure in you. However, Thomas decides that he is going to give himself up and goes over to Tammy 1, but then Littlefinger comes out of nowhere and bang, 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 shoots Tammy 1 and kills her. He tries juicing out Dylan's blood, but then him and Teresa get away and bang, 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 he shoots Dylan, piercing him on the side, Jesus style, but then Littlefinger gets bang, 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 eaten by zombies, allowing them to escape to the roof, where an injured dude, who is pierced right on his side with a bullet, is able to Air Jordan himself onto a helicopter, while Teresa just stands there like a game of freeze tag and falls to her death with the building. Oy vey. We end up in the safe haven where everyone's living happily. Thomas reads a letter from Newt that tells him to call him by his name, and they all Fred Flintstone names onto a rock to remember the loved ones as we close out this franchise for good. Until we get those prequels adapted. Thank you guys for checking out this video. As always, let me know your thoughts down below. Any movies that you want me to cover, TV shows, even albums.
We might be done with that, but there's still more videos I'm planning working on. And we're doing one more.
Listen, I told you guys that the Nun was like the Thanos of this universe, because she not only has a bunch of post-credit cameos, but she's always trying to take over everything. And I was right. In my opinion, the film is full of a lot of nonsense, so to me it was still a stream it better than Annabelle, but I don't think it hurts the franchise, which I still think is pretty interesting, like I covered in my recap video right here, especially with how everything is connected. Let me explain. So The Nun takes place before all the other movies in 1952. It turns out there's this duke who wanted to create his own Hotel California where he was sacrificing people in order to build doors that would break on through to the other side. So when the church finds out that he's opening portals for demons, they come in, take him away, lock the gates of hell, and then build a church on top of it. But that's like building a school next to Jared's house. Obviously, like every house built above an Indian burial ground, a ghost appears. In this case, it's a demon named Valak who dresses up as a nun in order to haunt all of the other nuns at the nunnery in order to take over their bodies to escape. But instead, they all enter Heaven's Gate and sacrifice themselves because they want to keep Valak in this place. When corporate hears about this, they decide to send their priest and Olive from Popeye to go investigate what's going on. They end up checking in for a 3-night stay, not realizing that all of the nuns are pulling a Bruce Willis and they're all dead. And they start getting spooked. Vera Farmiga's sister hasn't taken her vows yet, so that makes her the perfect candidate for Valak to want to take over her body, while Preacher Man starts following Yarn around like he's a cat and ends up getting buried alive. Now, let me say, these ghosts must have a membership at Lowe's because that grass grew back fast. At this point, they start taking it seriously, right? Frenchie, who's been helping them out since he was the guy who found the nun bodies, starts walking around with a cross bigger than Jim Caviezel's. Preacher Man pulls out his holy water squirt gun, and Irene puts on her super suit, looking like a tampon ready to soak in evil spirits. But remember, I had said in my past video that it's no coincidence that both actresses are sisters in real life, because everything's connected. That picture in Annabelle Creation that we saw, it's here in the lodging. In The Conjuring 2, there was all these Easter eggs about Valak with its name written out. You see the name written on a license plate in this one. So seeing that they have the Ouroboros sign, which pretty much means that everything's gonna come full circle, you have to consider that in this movie, the main nun is the heirloom to Romania. So, Valak wanting to be in this bloodline, it just leads me to believe that he eventually goes after Lorraine because she's also a part of this lineage. It's all connected. So anyways, the whole nunnery starts looking like a Lil Uzi concert. Irene takes her vows, which is the biggest friend zone for this dude right here. And as she starts the final boss battle with Valak, girl gets hooked up with the biggest cheat code of them all. The blood of Jesus. That's why Valak, the defiler, the profane mother of dragons, Julio Ricardo Montoya de la Rosa Ramirez, decides to dunk this hoe in the water, who somehow is able to swallow the vial that has the blood of Jesus while she's underwater, holding her breath, and then pops out to spit it out and give Valak the facial of death. Girl, with lungs like that, are you sure you want to be a nun? Everything seems to be fine and dandy until you remember that, The Conjuring 3 is in production for 2019, and they reveal that Frenchie is actually the same dude they mentioned in the first scene of the first Conjuring. They pretty much show you the scene back and just CGI him in, and they tell you that he's this guy named Maurice, explaining that the same way that Annabelle used a Marco Polo girl to eventually get back into the doll, Valak got into Frenchie to pretty much use him as a host so it would eventually get to Lorraine. Because they're all connected. No doubt we're barely halfway through all of these Conjuring movies, and there's going to be way more to come. They're all going to be connected. They all have really interesting Easter eggs. But if you're one of those people who get freaked out, just remember that The Nun has one of the lamest theme songs of all time. Because it sounds like a dude at the dentist. Thank you guys for checking out this video. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below in the comment section. I'm on the road trip, so...
So I hope you have a good day watching this video. Goodbye.